Uh, Good day. Our world has become very different. Advances in technology and AI and this globalization has posed challenges to cultural heritage. And many people may say, well, there is a place for cultural Darwinism. Why should cultures necessarily pertain? They might just fade away as any culture that is not sustainable, because the stronger cultures win and the weaker cultures just go away. Or others may say, you know what, everybody should belong to a global culture. We should develop one single global culture that unites people, because the history of the past is full of wars and conflicts and misunderstandings, and this was not something that we want to bring into the future, right? It's better that we let people leave everything behind and join into one single large community of people sharing the same culture. While these views are probably being sometimes having their point or being supported by some people, may suggest solutions to existing problems. I believe the panelists today don't share those views, because this cultural cynicism, the view that in the future we can create something much better than we had in the past, comes with its own dangers. So I now want to go to the first panelist today, Spiridon, and ask a question. How has your experience in digital humanities and as a European heritage advisor influenced your perspective on the importance of European cultural contract? And how did you come to the idea of the Open Heritage Republic, as you call it? What is your way of promoting this cross-cultural dialogue and mutual understanding among people? Make us understand these terms that are not very often used and may not be known to some of our audience. So I would like, Spiridon, to ask you to share with us these concepts, what they mean, and especially how they help people to understand each other better and work together towards a better future.
Thank you very much, Aram. And first of all, I would like to say that it's an honor for me and for Imagine Heritage to be part of this beautiful initiative. And of course, I think that we should give our congratulations to the EdHeroes for the whole preparation and this successful work to have this forum on a global level. It's a difficult task to speak today about the importance of heritage, cultural heritage, in a world so complicated, globalized, with so many contradictions, and at the same time with many inequalities in a worldwide level. For me, the most important thing is that through the heritage, in any corner, in every corner of our world, through different practices, from the experience of local communities, scientists, people that are volunteers, we can gain an ethical advantage about what is common in humanity and what is the element that unified us. And this is the most important thing that also in our organization we are thinking that is very important from an educational point of view, to discover the things that through the heritage unify the people unify the different communities, unify the different civilizations and cultures. And yeah, I think that this is the first step, first perspective um, for us to why we want to make a contribution to this beautiful field, and of course to navigate and learn from the experiences of other people, of other cultures, and try all together to shape something different with an authentic inclusivity, and not something typical, but an authentic inclusivity. So I believe that it's something that needs a spherical approach. It's very difficult many times because heritage is very connected with the past, the memories, things that are very deep-rooted with what happened in the whole evolution and the whole development of different people, different nations. And it's very difficult to try to have a spherical approach about the unifying element, as I mentioned in the beginning. It's very easy for the majority to use heritage and culture for divide and to re-engineering what in the past make the people to be divided. But I'm sure that if we have the patience to be scientific in the use of the heritage studies and the heritage practices, our education will be very equipped with a more global ethical conclusion that is connected, that we have all, independently of our differences, a common humanity identity about how we want to live on this earth, how we want to believe, how we want to respect the other, how we want to imagine the future, and even how we want to connect with the divine or not connect with the divine. I think that this is the most important thing.
Thank you. Sarah, now question comes to you. As Spiridon mentioned, the challenge is how do we make people that have been separated by history and by their worldview, which is defined by their history and their culture, how do we make them think the same way, along the same lines? And your life was split between Peru and UK, and the UK. Initially born in the United Kingdom, you lived a significant time in your life in Peru, then moved to the UK for your studies, then back. And so these are vastly different cultures. But I can imagine that your choice of the life mission was defined by you seeing this difference and seeing that some of the people that are disadvantaged not by their ability, but by the sheer fact that they was born in a particular circumstance, in a particular setting. That's very unfair. As I said, very often people see development as moving away from old and inefficient culture towards a more global, unifying one, a stronger one, or they sometimes say the better one, the one that is economically more advantageous, in a way of modernizing the life. So we can see that the colonial effort by the Europeans was very often also connected to bringing in their own culture and replacing the local culture, which they saw as old and inefficient and not well developed. So you seem to have a different take on what development means, because you are involved in such social development projects as your life mission. What's your view on how societies should be developed in connection with their cultural heritage? And also, as a follow-up question, what is the role of women in this change in the development of the societies?
Thank you, Aram. And I'd just like to follow in Spiridon's approach, saying hello and what a pleasure it is to be with the other panelists here today. It is such an important topic to be discussing, and I think that coming together with points of view from completely different countries and different experiences, I hope will be very beneficial to ourselves and those also listening to the discussion today. There are so many interesting points to your questions. The first one being my own personal identity, because as you say, it's very contradicting in many ways. I was in fact born in the UK from a British family, but I grew up in Peru. It's where I spent all of my life. I'm a proud Peruvian as well now. And I wonder if I would have got involved in social development had I not have grown up in a developing country. So 100%, I would say that had a big influence in me getting involved in working with communities, trying to develop social programs that would somehow always fall within the access to education. That is by far the most important aspect of what we do, is making sure that people who otherwise do not have the opportunity to access education for a whole range of reasons, whether it be political, social. And I think that one of the things to point out today is that our work with these communities is built off the basis of horizontal relationships. We cannot go into these communities and design educational projects if we don't fully try and understand their context, their identity, their culture, their traditions. And as you said, Aram, it's often people that are involved in the process of designing projects come with this very top-down approach of, this is the way it should be done. This is the way the globalized societies say it has to be. And I personally, and I know that Amantani, my organization, feels very strongly that that is not the correct approach to developing social educational projects. We're in a position, a fortunate position, whether it be academically or through work experience, to come into these communities and to work with people from a perspective of learning from the outside world, learning from how other countries, other projects, other organizations are doing things. And I think making sure that we start off by listening to what people need, how they envision their future, their development, making sure that we're always including cultural sensitivities. It's like Spiridon was saying, this idea of building authentic inclusivity. It starts from a basis of building very honest and like I said, horizontal relationships where we work together personally and through our work in the Andes and the Amazon regions of Peru, working with indigenous communities. In the past 10 years, we have learned so much from their identity, how important it is to preserve or not preserve, because that's also a very important point, is a lot of the time we think that we should be preserving every element of another culture based on what we believe. But actually, there is a way to building bridges between globalization, between cultural identity. And there is a way to do that that is inclusive, participatory, respectful, and will eventually lead to sustainable development, which is the goal. For us, it's about making sure that there is a space where opportunities are provided to people who otherwise would not have access to them, but to do it in a way that on their terms, to make sure that the opportunity is accessed on their terms, that they feel comfortable, that they feel like their identity and their culture is being respected, is being heard, to provide a platform, whether it be for their language, for their artistic traditions, for their religious beliefs, whatever this may be. We have to make sure that we always provide a voice and a platform for these communities and these people, which does not mean that there isn't a way to also include them into modern society, into the globalized sectors of employment, And I think that that's the challenge, right? How do we continue to preserve this heritage and to make sure that the rest of the world learns from it without somehow boxing people in because of their culture? I think that that's such a fragile but important element of social development. And there isn't one correct answer, but I think that we have to make sure that we foster a sense of belonging at every stage of our social development projects. So again, just going back personally to my own identity, growing up in Peru, people would not validate my identity saying that I felt Peruvian because of looking so British. And then when I moved to the UK, people would say, but you're not British. You can tell that you did not grow up here. So everyone was also, I always got the same response of wherever I went, my own identity wasn't validated. So it's just interesting how when you don't choose where you're born, but you are able to construct that identity over time. And as long as it helps us and it provides a space for us to use it in a way of learning and exchanging information and knowledge, then I think we're constructing and paving the right steps to creating inclusive development that fosters cultural heritage in a positive light.
Thank you very much. I'll now ask Mahmoud a question that interests me personally as well. Your background, Mahmoud, is in business management and strategic planning. What has influenced your decision to involve yourself in civil society development? What made you establish NIC Kyrgyzstan, and what are the NIC initiatives in preserving and promoting cultural heritage, and why you need to do that in the first place?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Aram, for giving me this opportunity. First of all, I would like to thank EdHeroes Network for inviting me as speaker in this huge event. It is especially very honored to speak today in this vital event, especially when we are talking about Kyrgyzstan as a case to highlight the transformative power about the cultural heritage here in shaping the global citizenship and increasing the sense of responsibility towards everyone. So talking about myself, as you just mentioned, I have a background of business administration and strategic management and so on. Since my childhood, I had a feeling that, I have to do something for my community. My case is very similar to Sarah's. Myself, I came from Egypt to Kyrgyzstan when I was a child. And I have just been in Kyrgyzstan all of my life. And I have been grown up and raised up here in Kyrgyzstan. And I started to feel that this is a place where I do belong, and I have to have some impact on that place. So when a person is having the feeling that he's belonging to a home or to a family or to a land or whatever, he's directly feeling a responsibility that he should return something back. So we got too many things from our community. We got too much information. And we have got also too much knowledge, and our lives itself is also belonging to the community. So when I was studying business, I had a feeling that the business is not only enough. There should be something for the community, something for the others. And that's what took my attention to the civil society and to the society development and so on. So I started to work as a volunteer since my school days. And then during my university days and my master, and then all of my life, I just dedicated it into the civil development and so on. Me, myself, I have a background of scientific background. However, the decision was to just directly put the attention into the development of the community. And how I started to do that, I have been working in different foundations and different NGOs. Some of them are local here in Kyrgyzstan, and some of them are international. And that's gave me different backgrounds and different, I can say, different perspectives to the international standards and to the international programs and to the best standards that can be used here in the community in Kyrgyzstan. When we are talking about Central Asia, I can say Kyrgyzstan is one of these countries. And Kyrgyzstan a little bit has a different, I can say, different context in the community. So what we have been trying to do at our work, we just try to get the most developed international standards and most developed practice in the world in the development sector, and then we try to integrate them with the historical culture and with the historical heritage here in the community. So we just said that we couldn't or we cannot bring any of the international programs and just bring them to the local community here in Kyrgyzstan. We use different approach. We use the approach of localization of the materials of the programs, and just, I can say, merging the international standards with the historical feeling of identity here for the Kyrgyz people. So we started to have different initiatives, different programs, and those initiatives, we have tried to just implement them in the collaboration with the different ministries and the government and the officials and so on. And it has shown a very, very big impact on the community here. The very, very important part that we try to use, and it was kind of new to the Kyrgyz community here, we tried to not just bring the culture heritage and the civil development into only some curriculums. We just try to use different new approaches such as gamifications, and we start to use gamification into our programs. So the students or the children or even the participants with different ages, they could come and they could make different activities, and they can play, they can draw, they can write. And at the end, they are learning something that links them with the history that they have been raised on and with the development of community. So this is a very, very brief about me and how I just got tackled to the development sector and to the civil society.
Thank you very much. Now, I want to go back to Spiridon with yet another question. We talk a lot about, cultural heritage or preserving cultural heritage in underdeveloped countries or developing countries, or the people that are, or communities that are endangered. But actually, this problem is clearly there even in developed Europe. Like there are several communities or cultural identities in Europe that are disappearing. Like the Romani people, they've been quite a large group of people that were not particularly liked in some countries and gradually disappeared. What would be, from your point of view, Europe's future as a system where different cultures thrive, even the ones that don't have the statehood or don't really have any particular economic sustenance to go forward economically? Is there, from your point of view, a plan? How can that be integrated into the education, into the civil society, into the structures of states, so that Europe preserves its unique culture heritage, which is a huge gift from its past?
Thank you, Aram. It's a very important question, and I think that at the moment it's a very important discussion at the same time that is going on in Europe about not only its cultural identity and heritage, but especially about the engagement of the citizens, all the citizens, in the European identity and heritage with a really democratic form, and of course with a representative way in order to evaluate and at the same time to have a very productive reuse about the future. For me, the problem is that we have many Europes. We have the Europes that, in a manner of speaking, it's the institutional Europe, and this has to do with a certain of way of, the technical articulation that is going on, for example, through the political union of Europe. We have the Europe of the people, of identities, of inclusivity, especially of an important youth movement the last decade that is coming out for the supporting of the cultural heritage of Europe. I think that one part of this movement is also our organization. And the most important thing is that it's a movement that is supported not only from European citizens, but also from people that coming from Asia, from Latin America, and also from Africa, from young students that want to support the perseverance and preservation, and at the same time a more development and more powerful reuse of the European heritage. For us, at the center of this discussion should be placed a certain point, which is that we need a kind of a European contract for the heritage, as we used to say about the social contract of Rousseau. We need a European contract that at the center should be the citizenship and the legalization of the right of any citizen not only to have access to the European heritage, but especially to be part of educational tools. What means to take all the gifts and the conclusions from the European history, and this to not be dependent on the national narratives, the nationalist narratives of the European imperialism past or the European colonization narrative. So this is something very difficult because many people supported, many people wanted to to demand and organize a real heritage civil society about this. But I think the next step would be to promote this kind of discussion, and why not a new practical situation and condition about the European heritage. We need not only museums, we need not only this kind of art that is so much dependent from the big foundations and the big institutions and the big states, or the rich people, but we need first of all to elaborate the European heritage from the point of view of a more universal narrative, which means that European heritage has at the same time some positive and also some negative features. And I think that the advantage of this uniqueness of European culture is to come back in a kind of positive enlightenment and say we have to admit that we have many mistakes and many responsibilities about our past and memory, but at the same time we have many strong points that should be sharing with the other co-citizens from all around the world. I would share with you just one example. Many organizations in the last years doing a very important work about the protection of the religious heritage of the Europe. And in this kind of heritage is not only included the important Christian part of the European history, but also the Muslim, Islamic, the Hebrew, and many other. But I mentioned here the most important that played an important role for the spiritual and intellectual development of the European civilization. And for me, it's I am very optimistic because for the first time we have projects that trying to approach European heritage from this point of view. That at the core of our identity, we have to recognize that we have many histories behind the European history. It's not problem to say that we have a diversity also in Europe, and this thing to sharing with the young people, with the students, and came in conclusions about how will be a better, future day in Europe if we want to take the necessary conclusions from the history, because the most important thing is how we want to create the whole hermeneutics about the history. So this is, for me, the most important discussion in Europe. Outside of politics and the states, the civil society is very strong at this point, but I think that we need to do more to build bridges with Asian organizations, with American organizations, African organizations from different parts that are doing great work the last years about the Islamic heritage, about the Indian heritage, about the indigenous populations, and to connect it and share more about this kind of citizenship. For me, this is the most important thing, to expand this discussion about what means heritage citizenship today all around the world.
Thank you. Sarah, you mentioned that the whole notion of identity and how identity changes or influenced by the cultural context and where the person was born, what he has experienced, and so on and so forth. So the culture and the cultural heritage cannot survive in a museum. It should live its own life in the current environment, in the current state of affairs, with the current people, the generations that have their iPhones and now AI and everything. So the challenge is to keep it afloat and going, thriving, moving forward, which means we really need to reconsider everything from how we live and up to who we are. What is our identity in the context of our history and our future, the future that we want to come, because, well, basically, we will live the future we deserve. If we want a good future, it will be our future. If we don't, our future is not going to be bright, right? So how to teach people, because you are involved in education as part of what you do, how to teach the young generation, how to help them to understand that they should be the people of 21st century, the modern people, belonging to this modern world. And at the same time, that probably means that they will have to stay with their heritage even more, or should make more effort to do that than probably people in the past. Because in the past, it was quite kind of natural. Now, you really have to make an effort to remain who you are, right? So that's an interesting context changing. So what's your view on that?
I think it's something Spiridon said that really resonates with me and our experience as well in Peru, is that there is almost a desire to look at this nationalist narrative, right? To think that we must look at the concept of culture in isolation, when actually I really do believe that no one and no group of people, regardless of where they're coming from, can approach social development projects or educational projects from a perspective of absolute knowledge, or almost with this certainty of this is the route out of poverty, or this is the route into integrating into society and becoming a successful, whether it be a young professional or a student or whatever it is. I think in our case, the communities we work with, for example, they have been made to feel marginalized precisely because of their culture. So when we first began our projects many years ago, there was this sense amongst the communities that they actually don't want to shed a light onto their culture, onto their traditions and their knowledge. They would rather almost have that be secondary, because they've been made to feel by other sectors of society, particularly those in urban areas, that they are somehow less worthy, less knowledgeable, less intelligent because of their culture, because of the language they speak, because of the way they dress, because of their, again, maybe religious, spiritual traditions. And I think for the rest of us, at least in my case, that have grown up in an urban area, we have to be very sensitive to this and actually realize that our role is a lot more of building the bridge of communication between one and the other, and making sure that these young people, these people can migrate into urban areas where they've otherwise been made to feel less than or marginalized because of their culture, and provide them with the opportunity to teach others about their culture and feel empowered through their knowledge. And we also have to be very careful to not do this, again, from quite a colonialistic perspective, which is a fine line, particularly when you, like myself, come from Western culture, and then you somehow try and find that delicate balance of working with communities that are polar opposite to your identity in many ways. But quite frankly, I think that if we don't approach cultural heritage with the sensitivity that it requires, then we're not going to get very far. I'll give you an example. Some of the young people that we work with in the Andes who speak Quechua as their native language, who grow up in rural areas, their parents being farmers, a lot of them, most of them not even finishing primary school. And many years ago, Korean soap operas became very popular in these communities. And I remember feeling completely shocked. The first feeling was, wow, I am in an indigenous community in Peru where people are speaking Quechua, and they're all obsessed and so interested with Korean soap operas, to the extent that they would start wanting to dress like them, have the same haircuts. And the reason why I bring this up is because they are completely entitled to mesh their identity however they feel comfortable. We must make sure that those spaces are provided, and that they aren't made to feel like they have to wear traditional clothing or they have to speak their native language. I think that it's about ensuring that people feel respected and that their voices are listened to and they are included in the process of social construction, less so than feeling that they have to maintain a specific identity because that's what people want to see, or that's what tourists are expecting. Or I think that we have to be very sensitive to this, and our expectations as outsiders have to be measured. And I think that for me personally, how we include language, how we create inclusive curriculum development, I think all of these elements can only happen if we bring those people into the process of construction, if they are the ones that tell us what we should include in the curriculum, how their languages should be represented and taught at schools or wherever it may be. That's the only way that you build, I think, honest relationships where people decide to what extent they want to display their cultural heritage or not. I think that we just have to be very sensitive to that and be open to the reconstruction of cultural heritage. And there is nothing wrong with that, in the same way that I am very much a British Peruvian, and if people don't like that, that's okay. But I think that we have to make sure that we create these safe spaces for people to identify in whatever way they want to. But if they want to maintain their traditional language, their traditional beliefs, that is also allowed, and that they are able to progress into positions of power, of leadership, and to integrate into society in a more natural way that doesn't feel so forced.
Thank you very much. Mahmoud, Kyrgyzstan is not considered to be the developed country. Like, many people there probably dream of living in a country where they get more wealth, more opportunities, better education, and so on and so forth. At the same time, when I look at your website, I see faces right on the front page. I see faces of very happy young people sharing some common interest, definitely, and doing something together. So how do we achieve this kind of self-esteem and feeling of happiness and fulfillment in people in countries that from the outside view may not be considered as most successful at the moment? And how do we make them understand that the world belongs to them as much as to any other people? And what should we do for that? And what do we do for that?
Great. Thank you, Aram. Actually, it's a great and interesting question. Actually, as you just mentioned, many young people here in Kyrgyzstan see the European countries and the US and the developed countries as a dream. So they just want to live and they want to be continuing their life in such places and such countries. Actually, what we are doing, and I believe that what should be done also in that case, firstly, we should be using different approaches to understand the real needs in the community, and to work on the roots of the issue and the challenges. As Sarah was just mentioning, that when we are talking about the roots of any issue, we just are talking more about the engagement, about the involvement, and about just bringing the ideas together. It's not only how Mahmoud sees the solution of the issue, or how the government is seeing the solution of the issue, or even how the young people are seeing the solution of the issue. It's just the matter of different opinions and different roots that are all gathered and collected together and creating such a challenge here in the community. So the first thing is to understand the real needs and to look from different perspectives. The second thing is just to raise the awareness. And raising the awareness is a very, very huge process. We're not talking about one day process, or we are not talking about just an educational curriculum, or about just one subject at the schools that can change everyone mindset and so on. So here we are talking about a full linked ecosystem that comes from the school, comes from the home, comes from the family, as well as the parents. We are talking about the teachers. So we're just talking about a different roots that are all connected, and they do participate in that process of just raising the awareness. And it is not just somehow that Mahmoud has some awareness and he is giving to someone else. It is a matter of just learning and giving. So just say Aram got something from one of his friends, from one of his colleagues, or whatever. It is just the sharing of the ideas, the sharing of the experience, the sharing of the importance, and so on. So this is the second point about the raise of awareness, I do believe. The raise of awareness is just the third point is that we shouldn't be indicating it into one specific approach. We should be using different kind of approaches and methods. Maybe for the young generations, we are talking about the method of gamifications, method of storytelling, method of just saying maybe showing them some historical figures and so on. With the other generations, we are talking about totally different approaches when we are talking about the social media, when we are talking about the internet and so on. With the also older generation, we can be using totally different approaches. So the idea is that I want to emphasize that we should be using totally different approaches to the different segments over there. And by concluding all of these different approaches, we go to the next point about after we raise the awareness and we use the different approaches, we will just come to the point of the feeling of the belonging. And that's what we are trying to just finalize it and conclude it in our programs and our initiatives. As you saw on our website, just the children or the boys are just very happy. And the reason of that is that we worked on that approach from the beginning after we checked the needs, and we use the most, I can say, most linked approach to them. And here when I'm talking about the children, we are using more about the gamification and just including the feeling of belonging through that initiatives and through such programs and so on. And when you are just, I can say, when you are just adding or raising that values, that person is having a value and having the feeling that he should be returning something back to his people, to his family, to his community. So he's just deciding that this is his place. And this is the place where he should be returning what he got back. Maybe they will travel, maybe they will go outside, maybe someone will go to learn. And this is a very important topic, by the way. So when we're talking about the migration and so on, so we're just talking about that the people are learning something and they're getting the different experience, different cultures, and they're learning it. However, we see that the most important and what we are trying to just leave on those young people that they should be coming back. And that's what they should never forget. They should be coming back. They should be adding something back to the community, and they should return what they have got or what they have earned earlier in their childhood. I think this is the ecosystem that we are working with.
Great, thank you, Mahmoud. I've got one last question, and I will ask all of you to provide like a 3-minute answer to it. And that's a practical question. Actually, Mahmoud started giving practical advice, and the question that we're tackling is very wide. We're like the small group of tourists walking inside the jungle. We are seeing some artifacts, but there are so many we don't see right now, or we can't show to our audience, because if we start discussing the whole topic, it will take days and weeks, not an hour. But still, the strong cultures tend to dominate, especially in the modern technological times where internet spreads everything and amplifies everything, and the people that have more control over information through means of like economy of things just get even more access to the brains and to the souls of people around the world. So on the other hand, domination is obviously not the best way to embrace the rich cultural heritage that humankind has created. Considering these diverse contexts and challenges that all of you have just presented, what strategies do you believe are most effective for integrating cultural heritage into educational system, foster this global citizenship, preserve cultural heritage at the same time? So what would be the practical advice, just a few things that you would suggest other educators, other people that educate the societies, that act as civil society activists? What would you then suggest them to do to achieve the goals that we've all discussed today? And I would suggest Spiridon to start.
Well, yes. I think it's the whole essence of the discussion. To suggest something practical is, first of all, to declare that we want an education that needs to integrate heritage, because, first of all, we want to go outside of our egoism. And the egoism is not only personal, but I insist that also coming from the traditional educational systems to be national, regional, and many times with a wrong pattern, cultural. So we need an education that incorporate all the heritage systems and all the heritage wealth from all around the world. For example, we need in Europe to have more heritage education about the Asian point of view of history. We need in Europe to have heritage lessons about the African point of view of history and the African point of view of culture. I think this kind of practical integration could make our students more respectful, more objective, more spherical, more democratic, and at the same time, more global citizens. And of course, I have the same opinion about the Asian. I think that in Asia too, they need to understand and to have the practical choice young people in education to learn the whole spheres and the whole levels of the European heritage, not only the imperialist, not only the colonized. And I think this discussion is at the center of many important projects that also from the United Nations the last years trying, to initiate, but I have the impression that we need to talk more about that we do not have real global education projects to speak about the all inclusion from the whole heritage point of views inside of each continent, inside of each national system. Because the whole problem in education is to stop to learn people to hate other people, to stop the hate. And if we want to stop hate, we have to do something practical and to intervene in the way that we want to have education today. And from this point of view, the whole scientific wealth, the heritage studies globally is an important and necessary tool. This is my practical suggestion.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Spiridon. Sarah?
Yes, I think along the same lines, I would focus on the need of reducing prejudices. And I think that it sounds the need of fostering empathy. And I think for us, a practical way of explaining how I think this can work in real life, at least it has for us. And this is actually something, Aram, you asked me in the very first question, and I didn't have the chance to answer it. And it's the gender. It's how does gender play such a big role in providing a space where cultural heritage and education work together, but also act as a catalyst for gender equality and gender development, especially in communities and countries like Peru, where unfortunately there is a high level still of patriarchy and gender inequality. So for us, for example, providing opportunities of further education to young women from indigenous communities that would otherwise not even go to school in many cases. A lot of the time, parents would prefer to send their male child over their female child to school. In our case, providing them with further education and for the fathers to see their daughters become young professionals has a complete shift in the way that they view their daughters, in the way that they see their daughters as equal. They allow for them to be empowered, to be integrated into the employment sector. It gives them almost another role in their eyes. That for me is already a huge change, because it has everything to do with changing those elements of how they viewed cultural heritage and the role of women, and how this can be changed for the better for society as a whole, and mainly to provide young women with a real sense of, again, with empowerment, with providing them with spaces of leadership, with spaces where they can have their own voice. And I think that this extends to any initiative that we try and put together where we're playing with the delicate balance of cultural heritage and education. So I think it's about intercultural dialogue. It's about reducing prejudice, making sure that learning and knowledge are at the very basis of any interaction, and moving forward, more importantly, with public policies and social development projects. So for me, it's like you said a while ago, we could spend weeks talking about this because there isn't just one exact answer. But I think if we start with fostering respect, participation, empathy, and exchanging knowledge, then we're definitely going in the right direction.
Thank you very much. Mahmoud, now your 3 minutes.
Thank you, Ara. Just to continue what the respected panels have mentioned in the words just right now, I would like to take our attention to your introduction to the session when you just talked about the AI time and about the current situation that is going into the world right now. As just the respected panels have mentioned, we have too many solutions, and we have to, if we just say we will just keep talking about different solutions. However, I do believe that now it is the time to integrate the technology and the AI into the cultural heritage. It can be used by different approaches and different methods. And as I was mentioning earlier, for every segment, there is a solution. So we should be using the technology and maximize the benefit of the technology as much as we can. The AI is a very powerful tool for us when we are talking about the tangible and the intangible heritage. Many people think that they should be visiting the site or the tower or whatever building that they saw, so they just can get the feeling of belonging, or they can just see that this was something that was integrated into their community. However, the AI now can be using the technology to just gather the ideas, as respective panels were mentioning now. We should be very open now to just gather together and to exchange the experience and exchange the needs and exchange the improvement as well. So the AI can be the best tool that just now in Asia, for example, I can at the moment see the historical heritage of Asia. I can be just visiting London historical heritage or whatever city in UK, and that goes on with the different cultures. So everyone can be more open with the help of AI and technology, using different platforms and different approaches. I do believe that this would be a very very great and huge accelerator to the process of the improvement and the process of just integrating the different cultures and heritage.
Yeah, at least the good technology of translation now is free, so we can at least understand each other without any intermediaries. Well, thank you very much. You've helped me to summarize our discussion better than I would do as a moderator, and it was a pleasure for me to moderate this fantastic panel. Thank you, dear panelists, for your input. And I hope that our joint wish to have the world as we've just envisioned will become true. Better sooner than later.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Aram.
Thank you, Aram. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Aram. It's a pleasure to be here.